listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz. For great radio, get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
And imposed upon the patriotic people of this country a responsibility and a duty greater than that of any citizen.
Is Good Health Facebook Live.
It is the common people of the world that are interested in this business. They know when we have war, it is they that have to bear the burden. It's their sisters and mothers and daughters that have to wait, trembling, to hear the news.
We are called as a people to give testimony in the sight of the world to our faith that the future shall belong to the free. Since this century's beginning, a time of tempest has seemed to come upon the continents of the earth.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.
I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom. Until we can reestablish a condition under which the earnings of the people can be kept by the people, we are bound to suffer a very severe and distinct curtailment of our liberty.
You're listening to the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HollowNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Oh, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. The new conservative resistance does indeed begin right here, right now, with you. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Today is Sunday, January the 7th, in the year of our Lord 2018. And we've got a little bit to get through this week. Jumping right into it, we go to Politico. Mexico's Trumpian populist could mean trouble for Donald Trump. Wait a minute. What? That's right. If the left-leaning nationalist wins Mexico's presidency, it could boost tensions over immigration, trade, and border security. Mexico City. Andre Manuel Lopez Obrador's campaign rhetoric can make him sound like a Mexican Donald Trump. The left-leaning frontrunner in Mexico's presidential race is overtly nationalistic, pushes Mexican people-first policies, and peppers his speeches with anti-establishment slogans that thrill the working-class Mexicans who flock to his rallies. So, why is Politico, albeit a very leftist-leaning source, painting this all as a bad thing? It's not a bad thing for Mexicans to want Mexico for Mexicans? Come on. I mean, that's make Mexico great again, right there, for Mexicans. And I think the best thing in the world for illegal immigration to the United States, the best cure for it long term, is to make Mexico a good nation to live in. So if this guy wants Mexico to have Mexican people first, that's great. America wants America first. Mexico wants Mexico first. What's the disconnect? Somebody's got to explain this one to me. I mean, if Mexico wants a left-leaning frontrunner who is a nationalist and who has overtly nationalist overtones to his speeches, fine. I'm not going to live in Mexico because I don't like, overt leftism. I also don't like rampant corruption and drug lords running my government. But I digress. Anyhow, that's what we got to start out with this week, is the Mexican Donald Trump. Now, personally, I thought the Mexican Donald Trump, the opposite of him, was former Mexican President Vicente Fox, saying, we're not going to pay for the effing wall. Despite the fact that you're the former president of Mexico, you did absolutely nothing to clean up your country's rampant corruption. So nobody cares. Yeah, that's always been my response to our old buddy Vicente Fox, is that nobody cares about you, Vicente. You're washed up. A has-been. Sorry, buddy. Now, good friend of mine, Stephen Airy from the Defenders of American Exceptionalism, got to throw that little nod to my senior partners there at Lanterns.Buzz. He brings up a valid point that nationalism often leads to more extreme ideologies such as Nazism, especially with Mexico's, shall we say, lightweight constitution. Nationalism can quickly become something more extreme like Nazism. And we've seen things like this in the past. I had a long conversation about this with my sister-in-law, who's one of my more regular ideological sparring partners. Not that we disagree on a whole heck of a lot. It's just she's a great debater. We really enjoy talking politics. And she asked me the serious question, why is nationalism a bad thing? What would make nationalism a bad thing? And my response to her was that nationalism, on its face, taken individually, is not a bad thing. I'll say that again for the people who are hard of hearing. Hang on. Nationalism is not a bad thing. That's right, it's not. Nationalism, however, can become a bad thing. Nationalism became a bad thing in 1930s Germany with the rise of the National Socialist Party. Nationalism in Russia became a very bad thing because they took a collectivist ideology toward nationalism. So they went from imperials to nationalistic communists. So that, in effect, was patriotism gone wrong. Because nationalism is an outgrowth of patriotism, for the most part. And then it can go in many directions. It can go toward that nationalism upholding a righteous state which upholds freedom. or it can be nationalism, which upholds tyranny. It all depends on how it is used. It's like fire. Nationalism is like fire, or it's better yet, like a gun. It can be used to protect and to defend and to rally, which is great, which is beautiful, which inspires you and warms your heart. But nationalism, taken the wrong way, can inspire man to some of the darkest deeds in the history of all mankind. That's where you get your Nazi Germany. That's where you get Pol Pot. That's where you get the Japanese under imperialism. Stephen just commented, the government is fire. That actually goes back to our founding fathers, and that's the way that they interpreted the power of government and the power of a binding, inspiring force like patriotism or nationalism, is that it is fire. It is man's tool, man's servant. And when you use it carefully, you can do great things. But use it carelessly and unrestrainedly, then it will destroy you and everything it touches. So Mexican nationalism, if they can pull it off, good for them. Because Mexicans should be proud of Mexico. Mexicans should make Mexico a country they want to live in, that they thrive in, that they enjoy and love living in. I know a lot of Mexicans here in the United States who would love to go back if Mexico wasn't such a hellhole. Because they love their culture and they love their people. They hate their government. And they hate the corruption and drug lords that plague it. So, if Obrador can make Mexico great again, I say God bless him and leave him to it. If he makes it worse, we need to buckle our seatbelts, folks. Because a socialist, communist, overly nationalist Mexico that suddenly develops a sense of revanchism, which if you haven't heard of revanchism, look this up. It's the HollowNet $20 word of the week. Revanchism is when a country wants to reclaim that which it has lost. And in Mexico's case, I happen to be sitting in it. So, a revanchist Mexico, while there's absolutely no chance of victory there against the United States, could still be very troublesome. And I think it much better that we have a prosperous Mexico to our south that draws their people home than an unstable Mexico to the south who wants to retransform the Southwest back into Alta California and Nuevo Mexico. Take a quick break. When we come back, yes, unfortunately, we've got to talk about it. I did show planning, and I said I'm not going to cover this crap. I'm not going to jump onto the media firestorm that is surrounding Wolf's book, Fire&Fury, because it is crap. The guy came right out and said that he cannot guarantee that everything he put in the book is true. Yeah, that looks good. You print a whole, tell all about the administration, and you can't confirm it's true. Really? Damn, have I been doing things the wrong way? I fact check and I look at my source material and I observe it all very carefully and weigh it and measure it before I get on my show or before I write an article. I can just shoot from the hip and make millions? Nobody told me. Dylan, Steven, y'all lied. You told me I had to check my sources and be responsible. This guy is apparently doing the exact opposite with aplomb and becoming the toast of the town the world over. Damn my honesty. Anyway, when we come back, we're going to have to discuss the Fire and the Fury. You're listening to HollowNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. We're live on Facebook right now. If you miss it on Facebook, catch it on YouTube or BitChute later on. I'm going to have it reposted. And we are on Twitter at Matt D. I'm sorry, updated my Twitter tag. We're on Twitter at the HollowNet. We're also Facebook.com/HollowNet. And as always, you can find us on the HollowNet.com and HollowNet.lanterns.buzz. We'll be right back. I see people coming together not for divisiveness of party or for dichotomy of thought, but for unity in principle. In the principles that founded our nation, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Today, ladies and gentlemen, those principles are under the sternest attack that we have seen in many generations. It has become a crime in this nation nearly to express a difference in opinion from what is held by your party to be doctrine, from what is purported by the media to be truth. We have an opportunity to reach out to our fellow Americans regardless of their creed and regardless of their political inclinations, and unite as Americans, not as Republicans or as Democrats, as liberals or conservatives, but to unite around the principles that have guided this nation so well. I've covered a lot of stories, but the story that remains untold is the story of America in the 21st century, when we choose to turn back the tide against progressive socialism, when we choose to embrace the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights, when we remember what it is to be Americans. And that principle will not die as long as there's one man, one woman, one child who looks defiantly into the night and says, I am free.
You're listening to the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
That was the Fire and the Fury by Skillet, one of my very favorite albums from an awesome Christian rock band. If you haven't heard that, I recommend you strongly check it out. And hey, at least that's one good thing that can come from all this Fire and Fury bollocks from Mr. Wolf, is hopefully this song picks up some popularity, because it's really awesome. Want to throw a thanks to my good buddy Stephen Airy Jr., who is playing the role of virtual producer right now from North Carolina, spinning the dials radio style down there for me. Today's HollowNet podcast has been a Stephen Airy production. So, yeah, 2 or 3 times Stephen will pop on his Facebook Live during my show, and he'll just give me quick little tips like this. But today, he's just stepping his game up. So one of the ways we came up is we stepped the game up, and that's what we do here at Lanterns Media Network. So cheers to my good friend from the frozen South. By the way, want to just remind all my friends who should be in warmer climates that it is 75 degrees in Phoenix, Arizona. Enjoy shoveling and scraping your cars, folks. Have fun with that crap. Now, wanted to make sure that we jump in wholeheartedly with both feet intact into this Fire and Fury. Fire and Fury indeed. All over the Drudge Report, all over the BBC, unexpectedly. Good Lord. We're going to go really quick to theblaze.com to an unexpected revelation from the Fire and the Fury. Tony Blair That's right, former Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Tony Blair of the United Kingdom, claims Fire and Fury accusations that he warned President Trump about spies from the UK are a complete fabrication. The Blaze's Janet J. Pruitt writes, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair has vehemently denied claims that he warned President Donald Trump's advisors that the United Kingdom intelligence might have spied on Trump during his campaign, The Guardian reported. In his newly released book, Fire and Fury Inside the Trump White House, author Michael Wolff wrote that Blair had a secret meeting with Trump's son-in-law and senior aide Jared Kushner to inform him that Trump's campaign staff and possibly even Trump had been under British surveillance. Wolff also wrote that Blair had maneuvered for a job as Trump's Middle Eastern envoy, according to reports from The Guardian. So not only is Wolff drawing the condemnation of the White House, and man, if you haven't caught that Stephen Miller interview on CNN, you need to check that crap out. Between him and Jake Tapper, that got ugly fast. You want to check out this story from The Blaze, where now he's even drawing fire from the UK's Labour Party, from the Blairite Labour Party. I mean, that's something. Saying that Tony Blair was maneuvering for a gig with the Trump administration? Are you kidding me? Is this crap even within the realm of human possibility, that someone could be so utterly divorced from reality as to take this for gospel truth? It's crap like this that takes whatever microscopic kernel of truth that may have existed within Michael Wolff's book, whatever points he may have contended, whatever little stories that he wove. It takes all of it and throws it completely out the window. The contention that he makes that the 25th Amendment is a constant discussion in the White House. It is a constant discussion among White House staffers as how they could utilize Article 25 to declare the president incompetent? Are you kidding me? That's not only impossible, it actually makes less than 0 sense. I have to literally move so far. I have to shift the Overton window such monumental distances in order for this to make even the slightest bit of sense. For us to be the least bit believable. It absolutely crosses the pale. It is out there. I mean, the fact that this is on the lamestream media on CNN, headlines, Tapper's Stephen Miller interview, the 24 most grotesque lines, MSNBC saying Fire and Fury controversy continues to heat up. Bannon backtracks on Trump Jr. criticism. Wolff, White House staff discusses 25th Amendment daily. Stephen Miller calls new book garbage, intense interview. Did Trump indirectly direct the DOJ to go after Clinton? How could the 25th Amendment be invoked? Okay, hang on, guys, hang on. MSNBC, you gotta slow your roll, kids. You gotta slow your roll. In your top 10 stories, you have the 25th Amendment referenced twice? Really? Come on, guys. This is insanity. The BBC, Bannon attempts to reverse treason remark. I mean, that's a banner headline at the BBC. And the BBC usually doesn't give much of a crap about American politics. Usually they're so busy with 10 Downing Street and Westminster that they don't have a lot of time for us, because 10 Downing Street over the course of the last year has been so mired in controversy and scandal that Theresa May hasn't been able to see her way out the front door of the legendary establishment. But, yeah, we're doing front page news on the BBC. We go to Drudge. Whole section on it in Drudge. The greatest show on earth. That's what they're calling it now, the greatest show on earth. So let's take something from this. And let's take a lesson from it. That the United States, as it sits, and I've been banging this drum for weeks, the United States, as it sits today, is absolutely in a state of cold civil war. We are in the midst of an ideological battle with competing sources of absolute propaganda going toe-to-toe with each other over and over again. On the one side you have the Trump administration and Breitbart. On the other side, you have the DNC, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, and the alphabet soup of the mainstream media. You have Politico. In the middle of all that, you have various sources to the left or to the right. And the important thing is to come out with your bias out front. Doc Thompson says this every week on his show. The important thing is to identify your bias. If you're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network, we are the new conservative, underlined several times, the new conservative resistance. I am a millennial constitutional conservative, and that goes all the way back to my writings for The Blaze for about 10 months in 2016, when their contributorship program was still up and running as it stood before. It's gotten a bit tighter these days. Now we see the Breitbart camp pulling away from President Trump in the person of Steve Bannon. However, Steve Bannon was snapped up quite short by his own board of investors, his board of directors. There was talk out there that Bannon was going to be walked out of his position as chairman for his opposition to the Trump administration. So they very, very quickly got back into bed. They kissed and made nice all over Twitter. It was truly something to see, although I don't recommend doing so on a full stomach. It was not pretty. I mean, just imagine that is, Steve Bannon looking up gingerly, gets down on one bended knee. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to accuse your family of treason. All is forgiven. Sure. I think we can officially say that the left has so completely and thoroughly jumped the shark since the Trump administration began that there is virtually no chance of the progressivist agenda moving forward in the next 10 years. I think that President Trump is not the hammer that has defeated the leftist progressive agenda in this country. I believe they defeated themselves by drawing so much ridicule to themselves due to their heavily amplified reaction to President Trump. They've made themselves utterly laughable. Utterly laughable. To the point that they have delegitimized their entire argument. So the fracturing within the right of, let's say, the Breitbart camp versus the Blaze camp versus libertarians versus Daily Wire versus Conservative Review, insert your non-traditional media outlet here, it doesn't matter anymore. Because the left has so thoroughly gutted itself. Who do they have to look to in 2020? I'm asking. Elizabeth Warren? Elizabeth Warren, you say? Why? Bernie Sanders? Who would doubtlessly be in his 80s as a president? Why, who else? Oprah Winfrey, you might say? Michelle Obama? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Joe Biden? Blow the dust off creepy Uncle Joe? Hang on. Thank you, Stephen. If Uncle Joe, good old creepy Uncle Joe, if you want to know why, just Google creepy Joe Biden. You'll be inundated with a bunch of creepy pictures. If they actually tapped him on the shoulder, if the Me Too movement, hashtag Me Too, does not jump up and peg Uncle Joe, then I say this now, they have absolutely no validity, no intellectual honesty Zero. If they allow a man like Vice President Joe Biden to take the nomination for the DNC. Think that over. Take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to spend the next half hour celebrating what might be a little bit of vandalism, which I'm pretty sure originated from the Arizona side of the fence. We're also going to talk about recent developments in the Middle East involving Pakistan and Iran. Some blowback from the Iranian protests. All that and more here on the HollowNet podcast on Lanterns Media Network. If you want to follow, again, follow at the HollowNet on the Twitters. We're on BitChute, also on Maker Support, and on Patreon. If you do so feel that need, if you feel it deep down in your cockles, in the coccular region, that's cockles. Don't censor me now. That was clean, YouTube. Okay? If you feel that urge, you can log on to patreon.com/lanterns or patreon.com/HollowNet. And you can throw us a couple of bucks here to keep this kind of thing going. And we appreciate you. Take a quick break. When we come back, to the Middle East we go. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around. Oh man, that's dark. You can't even see me. This is Matt Holloway, host of the HollowNet podcast on Lanterns Media Network and on the HollowNet.com. Wanted to just take a moment to talk to you guys today. I'm in my driveway, so look, car, it's in park. Car's not moving. All right, stationary vehicle. Always be safe out there. Reason I say always be safe out there is because check this out. Check this out. I drive home on the I-10, and like many people, I listen to streaming radio while I'm driving. So here's what just went down, and I'm going to start with I love our Arizona law enforcement officers in general, but in particular, I love the Arizona Department of Public Safety Highway Patrol. These guys and gals are clean, professional, polite in every instance I've ever encountered them, and this is like 3 or 4 times because I've had breakdowns, I've had to get towed like twice off of the I-10, and then there's just this instance I'm going to tell you about today. So I'm in the left lane, not the HOV lane, all right, because I'm single occupant during rush hour. So I'm in the left lane, doing speed limit, just driving on by, and I realize now I screwed up. I was not being good. I'm listening to streaming radio, so the song comes on I don't want to hear. So what do? You skip, right? So instead of being smart and skipping through my stereo, because I can actually hit that button, I did something stupid. I actually grabbed my phone, went like this, up here like by the steering wheel, and skipped it, and closed it. I'm not going to close it because then you can't see me. And then held the phone up here by the steering wheel for a second. And this officer saw me. And I'm playing my music, so I got my window down, got my arm out, and I'm listening to music. And he pulls by me, slows down, matches speed like at my back.
You're listening to the HollowNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Well, we're back. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. That didn't go completely the way I planned, but that's okay. That's what happens on live radio. I was playing a little story of me basically getting busted for having my phone out on the I-10 the other day, and it ends out with, me professing my undying love and respect for the Arizona Department of Public Safety Highway Patrol and telling people stay the heck off your phones while you're driving. So if you're listening to this and you're on your device, make sure you're not screwing around with that while you're driving your car. Be safe out there, folks, whenever you're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. Now, all that crap aside, we're going to jump right to the Middle East. According to Breitbart, Pakistan's foreign ministry claimed to annul its alliance with the United States after the Trump administration reportedly suspended an estimated $1 billion in security aid for refusing to take decisive action against jihadists who are fighting American troops and their allies in Afghanistan. We do not have any alliance, Pakistan's foreign minister Khawaja Mohammed Asif told the Wall Street Journal on Friday. This is not how allies behave. Wait a minute, wait. Hang on. Hold your phone. I gotta ask a question here. So, if I don't give you $1 billion because you're shooting my troops, then we're not allies. So you're saying, in order to be allies, I need to give you money and have you shoot my people, right? Is that what Foreign Minister Khawaja Mohammed Asif is trying to insinuate here? Really? Okay. Hang on. So, if you give us $1 billion, then do we get to shoot the living crap out of your army? Is that the going price tag right now for being able to shoot a bunch of people? Is $1 billion? So, it seems to be going the wrong direction there. As it would almost seem like we're paying you to murder our troops. Now, just as a simple American, a simple boy who grew up in Jersey, lives in Arizona now, I have a hard time wrapping my head around that, and maybe, just maybe, I don't understand all of the varied intricacies of Middle Eastern diplomacy. I just might not get it. But something tells me that if you're shooting the crap out of my soldiers, I no longer have to send you $1 billion frigging dollars for your security, because you would seem to have your security fairly well in hand, given that you could spare the munitions to shoot at American troops. So there's that, okay? Pakistan says we're no longer allies. You know, if this is what you're like when you're one of our allies, I don't see a benefit. If we're allies and you're still shooting and killing our soldiers, and you're taking our money, I don't think we're any worse off. So, you have fun with that. Yeah, Stephen raises a good point. He says, talk to Thomas Jefferson about Islamic nations killing our soldiers and demanding money for the privilege. So I'm going to say that in the exact spirit of that time, millions for defense, not 1 cent for tribute. Millions for defense, and in today's context, billions. But not a single cent for tribute. Which is exactly what we were providing Pakistan in this so-called security aid. Also in from the Middle East right now, report former president of Iran, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, arrested for inciting unrest. According to The Blaze's managing editor, Leon Wolf, multiple media outlets are reporting that former Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad has been placed under house arrest for inciting unrest in Iran due to comments he made about the administration of current President Hassan Rouhani. According to London-based newspaper Al-Quds Al-Arabi, Ahmadinejad said in a December 28th speech that Bushehr in Bushehr that some of the current leaders live detached from the problems and concerns of the people and do not know anything about the reality of society. He went on to say that the current government was suffering from mismanagement and that it believed the people of Iran were ignorant. The protests have roiled the Middle East nation began in earnest December 29th, as covered by the HollowNet. And the government blames Ahmadinejad's comments in part for inciting them. Ahmadinejad was also alleged to attend one of the anti-government demonstrations that rocked the country this week. Al-Quds Al-Arabi reports that the Iranian government has ordered Ahmadinejad placed under house arrest. So that's the situation now in Iran. That former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is now accused of inciting the filthy rebels of Star Warsian fame. Hang on, I gotta plug in a cable here. Keep knocking out my Ethernet cable on my desktop. It's not cool. Always good times. So now that we've been calling for it for the last 10 years, apparently Iran got hip to the fact that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, not a good guy. Not a good guy. And we have President Rouhani, who was previously stating that the people have the right to protest against their government as long as they don't destroy anything. How very interesting. I stand by what I said a couple of weeks back, that we may very well see a regime change in Iran. I said in as little as 2 weeks it could be possible, given the tenor of the protests which are ongoing in Iran. In response to these protests, Iran has banned schools from teaching English, according to the New York Times 3 hours ago. Isn't that interesting? English now seems to be the language of rebellion, because the majority of Facebook is in English, Twitter, English. It is a language that unites the world. According to the Washington Times 2 hours ago, Iranian protests give Trump the opportunity to oust the Ayatollahs. An analysis by Jed Babin. You can check this out again on WashingtonTimes.com. In the Iranian election of 2009, re-electing President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was so obviously fixed, the results ignited a near revolution that threatened the terror-sponsoring regime of the Ayatollahs. The Green Movement, led by prominent Iranians, including former Premier Hossein Mousavi, seriously threatened the regime that has been an implacable enemy of the United States since it came to power in 1979. The rebellion's failure was assured by President Obama. Instead of helping the protesters, Mr. Obama criticized them, saying they didn't represent the fundamental change. He spoke meekly, saying that the world is watching and inspired by their participation, regardless of the ultimate outcome of the election was. Mr. Obama did far worse, we know, from Wall Street Journal reporter Jay Solomon's book, The Iran Wars, that the CIA approached Mr. Obama seeking permission to engage in a secret campaign to help the Greens overthrow the Ayatollahs. Mr. Obama ordered the CIA to sever contact with that movement and take no action against the Iranian regime. Thus, the Green Movement was suppressed. That's an excellent story on the Washington Times by Jed Babin. I recommend you check that out. And I believe he's right. The present situation represents a unique opportunity for the Trump administration to do what no administration has been able to since 1979, and that's make a meaningful contribution to the freedom of the Iranian people. I'll restate. I'm not calling for U.S. military involvement in Iran by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think it's a good idea. But we do have the opportunity to stand behind them and assist them. And yes, Stephen, that's also why Dylan isn't woke. Because we're so rebellious because we speak English. So we're going to take one final quick break, and when we come back, we're going to jump into the Twitter analysis for the week. And we're going to discuss what items and issues you should focus on. Going into this, the second week of January in the year of our Lord 2018. You're listening to the HollowNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network.
Here at the New Conservative Resistance, we understand if you don't get enough of the HollowNet. So, we've made it easy for you. To find the latest on Matt Holloway, whether it be blogs or radio podcasts, go to thehollownet.com or hollownet.lanterns.buzz.
Incoming transmission.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HollowNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. The New Conservative Resistance does indeed begin right here, right now with you. You're listening to the HollowNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. From beautiful downtown Phoenix, Arizona, I'm Matt Holloway. Something to pay big attention to coming into the week ahead. New report just out from the New York Times. Tapes reveal Egyptian leaders' tacit acceptance of Jerusalem move, by David Kirkpatrick. As President Trump moved last month to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, an Egyptian intelligence officer quietly placed phone calls to the hosts of several influential talk shows in Egypt. Quote, like all our Arab brothers, Egypt would denounce the decisions in public, the officer Captain Ashraf al-Kholi told the hosts. But the strife with Israel was not in Egypt's national interests, Captain Kholi said. He told the hosts that instead of condemning the decision, they should persuade their viewers to accept it. Palestinians, he suggested, should content themselves with the dreary West Bank town that currently houses the Palestinian Authority, Ramallah. He was quoted as saying, "How is Jerusalem different from Ramallah, really?" He asked repeatedly in 4 audio recordings of his telephone calls obtained by the Times. Exactly that, agreed one host, Ahmed Magazet, who confirmed the authenticity of the recording. Think about that. Officially, in front of all their other common players in the Arabian world, Egypt is out and out condemning the president's actions. But unofficially, accept it. Move on. Yes. Even the leftist New York Times is forced to concede and admit this success on the foreign policy stage. They go on, they say, for decades, powerful Arab states like Egypt and Saudi Arabia have publicly criticized Israel's treatments of Palestinians while privately acquiescing to Israel's continued occupation of territory that Palestinians claim as their homeland. But now a de facto alliance against shared foes such as Iran, the Muslim Brotherhood, Islamic State militants, and the Arab Spring uprisings is drawing the Arab leaders into ever closer collaboration with their one-time nemesis, Israel, producing especially stark juxtapositions between their posturing in public and in private. Arab governments, mindful of popular sympathy for the Palestinian cause, rushed to publicly condemn it. Mr. Trump's decision broke with the central premise of 50 years of American-sponsored peace talks, defied decades of Arab demands that East Jerusalem be the capital of a Palestinian state, and stoked fears of a violent backlash across the Middle East. Yes, they go on to say this, but at the end of the day, what have the Egyptian talking heads said? Accept it. Move on. What difference is it between Ramallah and Jerusalem? Accept it and move on. Oh, goodness. With that, as we go into the week ahead, there are a couple of things to keep an eye on. One story, to end things on a bit of a higher note. We go to the Gateway Pundit. On January 1st, so the story's about 6 days old now, but I didn't have time to catch it on our last show. California highways for the new year say felons, illegals, and MS-13 welcome. This has been making the rounds on Facebook, and a lot of people have accused it of being photoshopped, seen these pictures, and said, no, it can't be true. In fact, anonymous street artists, is that what we're calling vandalism now? Cool. Street artists have decided to ring in the new year by posting messages to the Welcome to California highway signs. Signs were put up north of Lake Havasu, Prim, Nevada, and on Highway 95 in red. Official sanctuary state, felons, illegals, and MS-13 welcome. Democrats need the votes. The Gateway Pundit says it is unclear who originated this action, and they show several pictures. But, this is just me. Knowing the patriot groups that live here in Arizona, I am willing to bet dollars to donuts. I mean, bank on it. This was done by Arizonans. I almost guarantee it. This was done by Arizona patriots. It had to be, because of the constant back and forth commute of Arizona patriot groups to California for rallies. This absolutely strikes me as being their ultimate flip of the bird, if you will, to the Jerry Brown administration in Sacramento. So I'm going to keep up on this. I recommend you two developing story. If they ever find out who did it, I can almost promise you, I'll make a bet with you that this traces back to some Phoenix area conservative groups and patriots that did this. And I will say, while I do not endorse acts of public vandalism or of tampering with official signage, I'm not going to condemn it either. On that happy note, I'd like to thank you all for listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. Be safe wherever you are, whatever you do. Those in the back east, be careful shoveling. That's some hard work, and don't hurt yourselves. Good night. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. From Phoenix, good night, everybody.
listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Matt Holloway, and I hope you're enjoying our podcast so far. It's been exciting putting this together for you, and I'm looking forward to many more to come. I did want to let you know that in setting up the HollowNet and getting everything launched here, we've gone ahead and set up a page on patreon.com. Now, if you haven't heard of Patreon, Patreon is a website that's similar to other crowdfunding sources that allows you to support on a month-to-month basis those sources, those artists, and those groups that you really care about and that you're passionate about. And I hope that we can ignite passion in a lot of people to become more involved in the political process, and also to become involved in the conversation and to keep that political dialogue alive. So I'd like to humbly ask you today to consider becoming a patron of the HollowNet on patreon.com, and you can access that at patreon.com/thehollownet. We have various levels of patronage. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, which unlocks exclusive content for the Patreon community, such as a feed of patron-only content. Then you have a $5 option, which gives you behind-the-scenes access to blog about the different inspirations that we have. It'll give you access to patrons-only polling. And then we have a $10 option, which gives you a signed digital poster plus everything else. $20 option, which gives you name in the credits on the site, and all other rewards. And we even have a segment sponsor package available on Patreon, which is $125 a month, which entitles you and your business to a 60-second ad as a segment sponsor during the podcast, of course, subject to content approval. So if you would like to become a patron of the HollowNet, we would be greatly thankful to you, and it's going to go toward a solid cause of generating this sort of millennial constitutional conservative content that is so lacking in our media today. So thank you for your time, for your consideration, and for being a part of the HollowNet. Here we hold the line against the night, and the millennial conservative resistance begins here.